It always starts small, like a splinter that won't stop itching. My name is Marcus, and I lived in this neighborhood long enough to know how people smile to your face while sharpening knives behind your back. I bought my house with cash I saved after years of grinding, working double shifts, skipping meals, and watching the world tell me I didn't belong in the life I was building. The day I moved in, the eyes of the HOA president, Karen, drilled into me from her porch across the street. Her hair, stiff like a helmet, gleamed in the sunlight as if it was polished daily. Her lips curled in that artificial smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, with a sweetness that tasted bitter. That was the start. Rules followed, petty fines, notes taped to my door, complaints about my lawn being too green, my truck being too big, my nephew visiting too often. And every time I pushed back, I could see the fire burning brighter in her smug, pale eyes. But it wasn't just her. She had allies. The first time the cops showed up, I was on my porch, sipping sweet tea, enjoying the evening. His cruiser rolled up slow, like a predator circling prey. Officer Mitchell. Blonde hair cut short, jaw stiff, uniform neat like he was a poster child for authority. "Got a report about noise," he said, scanning the quiet street where crickets were the loudest thing alive. I laughed. "Noise? You hear any noise, officer?" His eyes narrowed. He didn't like that I didn't bow. He just said, "Just keep it down." No ticket, no warning, just a visit, a message. The second time it wasn't so soft. I was walking back from the store when he stopped me, lights flashing, demanding ID. No reason, no explanation, just because. And in the corner of my eye, from across the street, Karen watched from her porch, smiling like a spider watching a fly tangle itself in silk. But the real venom came from higher up. I didn't know then, but Karen's cousin sat in the courthouse downtown, Judge Harris, a man with a face carved from stone and a mind poisoned by prejudice. He wore his robe like armor, and every word that fell from his lips carried the weight of the gavel. I didn't cross his path by accident. It was designed. It started when the HOA fined me for painting my house a shade they didn't approve of. I ignored the notice. Then another came. Then suddenly a court summons. Not small claims. District Court, Judge Harris's court. And there he was, staring down from his bench like a god deciding fates. "Mr. Williams," he said, his voice smooth but sharp, "you've shown repeated disregard for the rules of your community." I wanted to laugh. My community? The one that sent their watchdogs after me at every turn? I stood tall. "With all due respect, Your Honor, what I've shown is disregard for harassment disguised as rules." His lips tightened. "One more word out of turn and you'll be held in contempt." Karen sat in the back, smug as sin. Officer Mitchell leaned against the wall, smirking. It was a picture-perfect triangle of power. The HOA witch, the badge, and the gavel. And me, the black man they wanted out. The ruling wasn't surprising. Fines upheld, threats of liens, a thinly veiled warning about further consequences. But here's what they didn't know, what they never imagined. I've lived too long with people trying to chain me down, and I've learned that when the world pushes you into a corner, you don't just push back, you build fire. You make them choke on the smoke of their own schemes.
I started small. Patience is a weapon if you know how to wield it.
First, I studied them. Every habit, every move. Karen's HOA meetings, where she barked at neighbors about mailboxes and lawns, I recorded. The cop stops. Every time he pulled me over without cause, I logged, dated, and timed. Judge Harris's cases? I dug into the archives, finding patterns, who he ruled against, who he let walk free. Patterns reveal truths, and truth, once you've got it, can be sharpened into a blade. Weeks passed, then months. They thought they had won, that their harassment would drive me out, make me sell my home for pennies, leave quietly like so many others before me. But every time they came at me, I smiled. That scared them more than anger ever could. Because anger is predictable, but patience is dangerous. One night, Karen stood in front of my house with 2 HOA board members, pointing at my garden lights, claiming they violated neighborhood aesthetics. I came out with my phone recording, polite, calm, asking her to repeat herself. She did, loud, proud, certain. What she didn't know was that her own vice president of the HOA hated her guts, and he'd leaked to me every ugly detail from behind their doors once he saw how she was targeting me. And Officer Mitchell? He made the mistake of pulling me over one night with his body cam off, slamming me against the hood, whispering words that tasted like centuries of hate. But my dash cam caught it all, crystal clear. As for Judge Harris, I found his weakness, greed. A man who wore righteousness like a mask but pocketed bribes in back rooms. A man who thought his bench was untouchable. But I had a friend in the clerk's office, someone who slipped me files, emails, whispers of deals no one was supposed to hear. By the time my plan was ready, I wasn't just defending myself. I was holding the match over a house soaked in gasoline. And when it burned, I promised myself I wouldn't just watch. I'd make them feel every ounce of humiliation, every drop of fear, every tremor of powerlessness they tried to pour into me. Because revenge isn't about striking first. It's about striking last and hardest. The first domino fell on a night when Karen thought she was untouchable. HOA meetings were her kingdom. She loved the sound of her own voice echoing in that small room, her clipboard snapping as she declared violations. I sat in the back row, silent, recording every word. That night, she crossed the line. She told the board that certain people, her eyes cutting sharp into me, don't fit the image of our community. I let her keep talking. Every slur hidden under polite words, every suggestion that homeowners like me drag down property value. And when she finally laughed, mocking me for daring to fight her fines in court, I stood up. "Karen," I said calmly, "this meeting is being recorded, and as of tonight, so are you." She blinked, confused at first, until I pulled out a printed copy of HOA bylaws, highlighted where she had broken her own rules. Nepotism, misuse of funds, fines without board approval. The vice president, the one who'd grown tired of her iron fist, smirked as I handed him a folder filled with proof of her embezzling HOA funds for her personal landscaping. Gasps filled the room. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably. Karen tried to scream it down, call me a liar, but the projector I had brought flickered to life, playing back her own voice from previous meetings, mocking residents, making racist remarks she thought were behind closed doors. The room turned cold. The kingdom cracked. But I wasn't done. That was just the appetizer. The cop came next, Officer Mitchell. I waited until the department held its annual Community Policing Forum, where officers shook hands with residents and posed as guardians of peace. Mitchell strutted in like he was king of the badge. That's when I stood up in the crowd. "Question for Officer Mitchell," I said loudly enough for the whole room to turn. "How many times have you pulled over black men in this neighborhood without cause?" He laughed it off. "Sir, I don't profile anyone." I pressed play on the projector again. My dash cam footage lit the wall. There he was, slamming me against the hood, whispering slurs, threatening me. His voice was unmistakable. The room went dead silent.
The police chief's face drained of color. Reporters in the back scrambled with their cameras. Mitchell's smirk fell apart as his body stiffened. "Still don't profile, officer?" I asked, voice calm, steady. He didn't answer. He couldn't. By the next morning, he was suspended. Investigations opened. Lawsuits filed. But the grand finale, the moment I had been building toward, was Judge Harris. Taking down a judge isn't easy. He had the robe, the respect, the illusion of power. But I had something stronger, the truth. I gathered everything. Documents of bribes funneled through shell companies, court transcripts showing his bias, whispered testimony from lawyers who'd seen him bend the law for friends. I waited until the courthouse was packed for a high-profile case. I walked in not as a defendant this time, but as a man armed with fire. When he banged his gavel and tried to silence me, I stood tall. "Your Honor, this court deserves honesty, and you've given it nothing but corruption." Gasps, murmurs. The bailiff moved toward me, but I raised a flash drive. "On this drive," I said, my voice booming, "is proof of every bribe you've taken, every biased ruling, every soul you've crushed under your gavel because they weren't the right color or didn't have the right bank account." I handed it to the clerk, his own clerk who had already betrayed me to him. The courtroom projector flickered once more, showing emails, bank records, even recordings of him making deals in whispers. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Reporters ran to the exits with their stories. Lawyers muttered in shock. And Judge Harris? His face went pale, his hands trembling on the gavel that no longer carried weight. For once, the man who sat above everyone else had nowhere to hide. That night, the news broke across every channel. HOA president accused of embezzlement. Officer suspended amid racial profiling allegations. Judge under federal investigation for corruption. And me? I sat on my porch with a glass of sweet tea, watching the neighborhood in silence. The same porch where it all began. Neighbors who once looked at me with suspicion now nodded respectfully as they passed. Some even apologized, though their words couldn't erase the years of silence. Karen's house went dark, her blinds drawn tight. The cop's cruiser disappeared from our streets. The judge's bench sat empty. I hadn't just survived their plan, I had destroyed it. But revenge wasn't just about watching them fall. It was about reclaiming my place, showing that no matter how many webs they spun, I could burn them down with truth. And as the summer cicadas hummed in the dark, I realized something. Power isn't given, it's taken. And when it's wielded with patience, with precision, with unbreakable will, it can topple even the strongest walls built by hate. They had tried to bury me, but they forgot. I am the fire.